Welcome to Sportico Live. Of course, we want to say hello to our subscribers, and if you're joining us for the first time, we want you to become a subscriber, but thanks for joining our thought leadership community. We are chatting about investing in sports, a big topic these days. We are happy to be joined by our sponsors, Goldman Sachs and OMelveny Law Firm. Speaking of OMelveny, we have the co-head of the sports and entertainment practice, Chuck Baker, with us. Chuck, hello.
Hello, hello.
And to your right, my left, we have Todd Boehly, part owner of the Dodgers.
Nice to see you.
Thanks to see you. Dodgers doing pretty well, eh?
You know, off to a good start.
All right. Also investor in the Lakers and a few other things in terms of platform company. We will get to it. My question for you to start, why do you want to be involved as an investor? Because it's an emotional investment, it's a financial investment in sports. Because I've talked to other owners and we have discussed this. You can do everything right and still not win. That doesn't seem appealing to me. Why does it appeal to you?
Because it's intellectually stimulating. You know, ultimately, I think generally that's pretty much a rule, right? There's no guarantees. And I think it's also very humbling when you do everything right and you still don't win. So there's a component of it that, makes me continue to strive to do the best I can do every day. And, you ultimately start, you figure it out, you put the right people in place, you build the right foundation, and you then let it run. And from my point of view, at that point, you get all the benefit while you sit back and observe. And you can't tinker every day.
I love that, but I've never heard the intellectually stimulating answer. And I've asked plenty of owners, why do you be involved in this? It's fun, it's high profile, the emotion part of it, but I'm really curious about that. It's intellectually stimulating. I mean, I guess, yeah, but every day, just explain that a little bit more. What do you do on a daily basis that you get that constant feedback?
Well, you're constantly thinking about probabilities, right? And you're constantly thinking about how do I put together the best possible chance to win, recognizing that it's never 100%, right? But if you're under the hoop enough times and you're in the right place at the right time and you've built something that's sustainable, then it can continue to perpetuate. And I just love the fact that, if you build the foundation, and I also love the fact that there's no shortcuts. And so, to me, the fact that, you actually have to go out, do all the work, build your farm team, get your free agents, find the front office, and then you also have to win the game, right? So from my point of view, I just love the fact that, there are no guarantees, right?
Chuck, have you heard this before from other prospective owners, like this, the intellectually stimulating part
I
of it?
have actually. What I'm curious about, though, obviously it's intellectually challenging to try to put together a team and put together a winning team, and that sometimes takes years. Do you find the business itself to be challenging? You run a lot of businesses through Eldridge. Is this a business that you would say is one of the more challenging, or is it not that complex a business from your perspective?
I think there's definitely complex components to it, and the more of it that you can control, the easier it becomes. So I think one of the things that's great about the Dodgers, right, is we have 200 acres, we have our own stadium, we have the ability to define how we use it every day. I think that if you don't have those pieces, then it's a harder business. But I think once you start to understand, and by the way, winning's valuable, right? So as you start winning more and winning with regularity, right, then you have more and more associations and opportunities for associations with the equity in the brand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So let me ask you this. You and I worked on acquiring about a third of the Lakers together recently. How important was the fact that your baseball team was in LA in that decision, or were you interested in the NBA generally and would have acquired a nice opportunity there?
I think I can answer this one, but I'm going to let you know it.
I think it was we started talking to Jeannie back in 2014, and our approach was very different than most, at least how it's been translated to me. We didn't show up with any agenda. We showed up with, we're your friends, we're the Dodgers, and we're here to be helpful. And when the opportunity came to acquire that stake from Anschutz, Jeannie was the first. She called us first, and by laying the groundwork, and getting to know her, and getting her trust, I think that really gave us the opportunity to negotiate. And I think we're very happy about the fact that it was in LA. And Jeannie, Dr. Buss, used to tell Jeannie, you need to do a deal with the baseball team. You need to deal with the baseball team.
So way back when he was saying, was it synergy? What was it that Jerry Buss saw in sort of the two working together?
I think it was the fact that you have content, the whole year.
Content. We'll get to that.
So I think you have, every month covered. And part of the reason I love October so much is because you've got playoff baseball, you've got basketball starting, and you've got the NFL right in the middle of the season. So everything's cranking. And, I think we see it as, the opportunity to be great stewards of, tremendous assets. And the fact that they're both in LA, we think, we're just starting to think about all those opportunities that can come from that.
I'm so glad you didn't take it to the next step. I really don't love it when sports owners say the team belongs to the people. I know I own the team, but I don't own the team. I'm glad you didn't take it to that next step because you own the darn team. You are a part owner of the team. I extensively covered the bidding process when you bought the club. There were plenty of people around. It was a bankruptcy auction. Everybody was shocked at the $2 billion figure, but key to that whole process was the regional sports network. And I think you might have had that deal worked out ahead of time and known what the rights fee was going to be. Can you talk to me about media in general and how it is driving revenue and how you can capitalize on RSNs? And I want to get to that sort of overall business in a minute as well. But what you need to do from a media perspective, where we are and where we're headed.
Well, first off, we didn't know exactly the deal we were going to get with Time Warner Cable. We had a sense for where Fox was, and we had a ability to, obviously the way it all played out, if you recall, right? There was a deal that Fox and Dodgers, the previous ownership, had cut that Major League Baseball rejected.
Yeah.
And that's what triggered the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And therefore, all that paperwork, was now in the bankruptcy court filings. So we were able to come up with a pretty good idea as to what Fox was willing to pay, when, the previous owner was under duress in order to get that deal done. So that gave us a baseline as to what we thought it was worth. And, we knew that, Fox was likely willing to pay more in a situation where it wasn't under duress, right? Because Frank could only negotiate with Fox. That was the way that deal was set up.
That's Frank McCourt, the previous owner.
Yeah, the previous owner. So, he was in a rock and a hard place, and, we didn't think that was the best and final bid. And we also knew that, others out there were interested. So, from our point of view, we were confident, and, obviously, if the media rights had come up the year before and were not part of the package, we couldn't have paid $2 billion.
That was going to be my question. If their media opportunity wasn't there, and there was also some real estate opportunities, but strictly the media, if that was not there, is it you're not involved at all, you're not interested, or just the price is lower?
Well, I think you would have thought about it as differently, right? Because the owner that was selling it probably would have kept the media, right? The same way the Mets just went down, right? Where the previous owner kept the media asset and sold the team. So, the media contract that they have at the Mets, until it comes up for the next time, that asset still belongs to the seller. So you definitely would have not been able to pay the same price had the media contract been negotiated the year before, and that would have been then reflected in the sum of the parts.
Give me your assessment of the regional sports network business in general. One person who was looking at the Mets described the RSN business to me as a melting glacier. One, is it still a glacier, and how fast is the melt? And you thought this was going to be easy.
No, I think it's
I softball.
I think that, the reality of it is that, the idea that, the team is standing between its fan through a cable system is pretty antiquated. So I think it's going to have to change. And I think that there might be, a step back that has to happen before you take a step forward. But I ultimately think that the content is strong. The opportunities to merchandise it and monetize it through different audiences is there. I think you're going to obviously see, everyone talks about sports gambling and what that's going to do to the content, because it's just another format with which the content can be utilized. So I think that, I'm long-term very bullish on the content, but also short-term, concerned about what's going on with the MVPD and the RSN market.
Chuck, you go. I mean, I want to get to direct-to-consumer. I want to get into sports betting, second screen. I'll let you go, and I'll get back.
Quick one while we're on the Lakers and Dodgers. Lakers, global brand, or arguably among the top 2 or 3 in the NBA. Dodgers, same in MLB. Would you buy a team that wasn't a global brand? And do you see a lot of upside in teams that aren't already global?
I think that's I like the ones that have significant momentum already behind them. And, that's my preference. And I think they're more expensive, but I think they're generally better value, right? So the fact that, the Lakers, one of the rumors that I've heard is that there's been more Laker jerseys sold than all the other teams combined, right? They've got 17 world titles. You walk into their facility, they've got them all.
And the trophies are up in the office when you look up.
Yeah. Totally awesome over the court.
Yep.
Right, reminding everyone why they're there.
Yep.
And the Dodgers have 6 and, hopefully growing. So, I think those 2 brands, they mean more than just baseball and basketball. Right? They mean Showtime, right? When the NBA actually came to be, right, you had kind of the Celtic style of ball, you had the Laker style of ball, and you had the Detroit Pistons style of ball.
Showtime, slow time, and ugly.
Your words, not mine.
You're not disagreeing.
But, and then, of course, with the Dodgers, you have the Jackie Robinson legacy, the history of the organization, and all the great games that they've played over the years. So you have 2 tremendous organizations in a tremendous city, which we think, is only going to continue to grow.
You know how The Simpsons predicts everything years in advance, right?
Yes, of course.
There's a great scene where they're walking into a hardware store, and it says, big, huge sign, Mom and Pop Hardware. And then they don't point it out. If you see it, you see it. As they're walking in, there's a little plaque on the side that says, a division of Global Dominance, Inc. That's how I kind of feel how sports teams are. It's like it's sold as the mom and pop. It's the Dodgers. It's the it's the feel good team. A division of Global Dominance Inc. Does that resonate with you? You have global aspirations. You want to dominate the globe with the Dodger brand, the Laker brand.
Yeah, ultimately you want to win, right? And
that helps you dominate the globe. Winning is a prerequisite to domination.
We don't think about it as domination. We think about it as winning. And if we happen to win all the titles and someone talks about us as dominating, we'll be okay with that.
But what does it allow you to do? Please give me the vision of how you will distribute those brands around the world. I mean, it's all about tech. It's about scale. It's about reaching eyeballs outside of just those folks. How many seats are in Dodger Stadium?
55,000.
55,000 times 81 home games. That's a finite number.
Yeah, 100%.
Why would you just want to capitalize on those when there's a whole world out there?
Well, there's also playoffs, and that's why you win.
Yeah, of course. But it gives you entree to those global eyeballs. How do you capture them all?
Well, I think we think about it as, there's the stadium, right? And then there's the glow, right? The glow that comes out of the stadium. And you have, obviously the sponsorship, the merchandise, the ticket sales, you have all that in stadium, right? And then, ultimately the value is going to be in the reach of the glow. And the glow is the media, right? And where does it go? And of course, right now, right, one of the things that I think all the leagues are thinking about and need to be thinking about is how do you incent teams to want to grow internationally, right? Because right now, if you are the owner of the Dodgers and you sell merchandise in Japan or Taiwan or any other place, Korea, where the Dodgers are loved and followed, the economics of that don't justify you doing it. So ultimately that has to, and Mexico, I mean, there's lots of markets where we think we have lots of ability to build our brand, but the challenge is that, the incentive system doesn't really allow for it. So, but ultimately, I think all of that rights issues, because I think the RSN stuff and the direct-to-consumer is also rights related.
Sure.
But in the end, all of that rights stuff will have to come to the market, and the market will end up governing how this all plays out.
Give me how will the game be presented? I mean, in your mind right now, you've got second screen, you've got sports betting, you've got e-commerce, and I'm watching what Michael Rubin is setting up with Fanatics. People won't just sit and watch the Dodger game.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe old people like me may
Yeah.
sit and just watch one screen, one event. That's all I can handle.
Yep.
But Steve Ballmer's Court Vision, I was a beta tester, and it had the shooting percentage above everybody's heads as they moved around and it changed. I said, this is making me dizzy. And I told Steve, I'm like, this is making me dizzy. I can't
Yeah.
do it. But my son saw it and said, this is the coolest thing ever. I love it.
Yeah.
And now betting percentages as well.
Now, betting percentages, is it going to be part of that first screen? Is it second screen? How do you want people to consume what you're putting out there?
Well, I don't think it's one size fits all, right? So I think you're going to have a format that is simple and basic, for those who have been experiencing broadcast for 50 years, 60 years, 30 years, whatever it is. I think you're going to have a version which is enhanced and interactive, which isn't gambling but is loyalty. Right, so as you kind of get more engaged in it, and it'd be the type of thing that parents would watch with their children, where you can bet on whether it's a ball or a strike, but not for betting purposes, for engagement purposes, and then ultimately, the more engaged you are, the more loyalty you get, and that loyalty then can be cashed in at the stadium, right? So it's a virtual loop that keeps you coming back, and then of course you'll have the betting version, which will be enhanced however you want to enhance it. And I think you should be able to build your own as to what is it that you want to see? What are the things that you want to see? It's just like my Bloomberg screen, right? I program my Bloomberg screen the way I want to see it. And, ultimately, I think that's going to be, how people will, at the high end, meaning the most cost, will enjoy, consuming their sports, in the years to come.
Having spent 27 years at Bloomberg before leaving to start Sportico, I hope NHBSP of the sports department was what you really hit more than anything, right? I'm guessing not.
I hit it all.
Good.
Yeah, hit it all.
Are you encouraged or discouraged if I tell you that my 12-year-old, who is an athlete, does not like to sit and watch sports? He will not sit on the couch, and this is not baseball. This is sports in general. He wants to play. He does not want to watch. But here's the really good part for you. He knows every single Major League Baseball player because he and his pals are on the Xbox playing the show. Is that encouraging to you or discouraging in a world where everybody's trying to get the next group of fans?
I think that's encouraging.
Because why so? Do you think that's how you're going to reach them? It's just a different mode of reaching fans?
Yeah, and if you build fans, right, that's your goal. Right? You want to build fans. You want to have people that have passion. I believe that one of the things I love about sports is it's one thing that everyone has passion about, right? Not everyone, but most people have passion about their team. And it's that passion that is so exciting. We know, for example, that if we get a 5-year-old into Dodger Stadium, our odds of making them a fan, long term, are high, right? So, and I'm sure your son would enjoy going to the actual events. Right? Yeah, I don't think most 12-year-old boys like to sit around and just sit around and do nothing. Right? I remember I have 3 boys. They're very active. They don't like to sit around and do anything. That kind of takes a couple hours.
Yeah.
But they'll be up and down and they'll be all around. And fantasy is another thing that has them completely engaged. Right? And the amount of fantasy leagues they're in and fantasy discussion, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, they're into it. And I think that's all just alternative uses for the content. And the more people are engaging with it, I think the better that is. And if you engage it in different formats when you're young, because you don't want to sit around and watch TV, I still think you're building a fan.
Right. Chuck,
You mentioned content. These are vehicles for content, right? I mean, Adam Silver would call the NBA an entertainment property.
Yeah.
It's content. Happens to be people playing basketball, but it's content. Do you look at your teams that way as well?
It's certainly one way that we look at them, but I don't think we sit out and say, oh, this is just content, right? Because we look at it and say, this is passion. And, people want to be feel passionate. They want to feel emotion, right? What is it that you get up every day for, right? I think that, I think it's good content, and it's unique content, and they're not manufacturing more of it, right? So, you have 32 football teams, you've got 30 baseball teams. You're not going to double the number of teams, So ultimately, we think that, the fact that it's, limited by the amount of it makes it almost like a luxury product.
Well,
Beachfront property, scarcity value.
Yeah,
that
100%.
helps drive. Yeah.
and you're investing in content. You're in Penske Media, owner of Sportico and Variety and Rolling Stone and South by Southwest, Dick Clark Productions.
Yeah.
The team with the Golden Globes. Where else are you just invested in ticketing? Where else around the ecosystem are you looking?
Well, we've invested in Fanatics. We took Vivid public through one of our SPACs. We're early investors in DraftKings.
Global Dominance Inc.
And
Winning.
And A24, was a film company that we started. MRC is one that we're involved with. So, again, premium content that, people really engage with, is something that as you get more time and you have more devices and you have more, delivery power into those devices and networks get better and better and faster, I think that, having things that engage you, and keep you out of trouble, is really valuable. And to me, premium content, again, everything we try to be, and if you look at the brands that we are partners with Penske, Rolling Stone, Billboard, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Vibe. I mean, these are, we're not partners in Sportico. We're not partners in Sportico.
But still, keep that away from us.
As the founder
Just
clears
say
his throat.
Sportico. Well, Sportico Live, everybody.
Yeah, so I think those are all top-notch brands, right? Sportico included.
All right, so Todd, I hear if we're going to do a Harvard Business School study of sport, these teams, at least the best brands, are really platform companies. We talked about ticketing and tech, and you have Elysian Park Ventures, and you're investing in companies that, one, you can use in sport yourself. It's one way to get involved. But I'm guessing because of the high profile of sport, you then get the bonus of it scaling outside of sport. Can you just tell me about the cycle of what you look for in these companies and what you hope to achieve?
Yeah, so we absolutely think of them as platforms. And, I think obviously the first thing is they have to be authentic, right? And you don't want to go places with brands that are so tremendous and do anything that's not authentic. But Elysian Park is a perfect example, right? The very first deal we did with the Dodgers was a company called Instant Replay. And basically we opened up Dodger Stadium and we brought in multiple cameras with a new technology. And Intel then acquired it from us. We put in a couple $1 million and we made 10 times that. And it was the 360-degree view. Mm-hmm. So when you're watching the home plate and they give you the 360-degree views, or on the NFL.
You know what that would be really good for? Check swings. I could not help myself.
Yeah, well, sometimes you get screwed, and sometimes you're the one getting the
hammer.
benefit.
Sometimes the hammer, sometimes the nail. Yep.
That's just part of life, right? Everyone says baseball is life, right? And no one ever said it was fair, So, but yeah, I think that but that's the technology we invented at Dodger Stadium with a company out of Israel, and we sold it then to Intel, and we started realizing oh my gosh, there's a whole other layer of business here. Right, because of course, if we're offering our platform, our stadium, our 4 million people that come in and out as an asset, there's a whole lot of people who would value that as an asset versus capital, right? So we can contribute that environment in exchange for equity in businesses,
equity in the business,
and make investments alongside because we're happy.
Very
to put
low
in
risk
capital.
investment.
Usually, and that to me is just a whole other level of what we can be doing with sports teams.
But you know the saying, for he wept for there were no more worlds to conquer.
Yeah.
there are always, for somebody who needs to be intellectually stimulated on an ongoing basis, some of us like to nap and do nothing. Some of us, like Chuck.
I don't get paid to nap.
I ask you, what's on the horizon? What's on the to-do list? There are other leagues, there's other platforms. What do you think you could add to the portfolio?
Well, listen, I think one of my ultimate goals is to figure out how to get the direct-to-consumer media experience proper, right? And I think the rights have to, be sorted. And I think we're going to see, over the next 12 or 24 months, a lot of action in that area. And, so ultimately, I think being involved in that would be something that I would find, exciting. And also, I also have multiple reasons to want to be involved in that. So, the Dodgers, want that to be the outcome. The Lakers want that to be the outcome. And ultimately, we're going to continue to grow our fan bases. And the deeper you can get with the fans, the stronger your franchise is going to be. And the stronger your franchise is going to be, the more likely you're going to be able to win. And so these things are self-fulfilling. Obviously, we're thinking about the fan and all the things around the fan, and the fan is in the middle. So, as you think about, how all of this comes together, you really want to be thinking about all the multiple ways that you want to serve the fan.
I'm hearing Michael Rubin.
Yeah, I was
he
thinking
wants everything he
fanatics.
does puts the fan at his core, and so you
And
certainly
so
get
does,
that.
and so Karsten Kroll says that's the same way. It's
Sport Radar CEO, yeah. So Chuck, not
Vivid.
because OMelveny is a sponsor, not at all. You can have the final word. I want you to have the final word.
Only because I told Todd I wouldn't ask this question.
Do it.
What keeps you up at night?
Nothing to do with sports. It's the frustrating thing that I have is that we're 75-80% of us live in the middle, and we're getting pulled apart by the 20 or 25% on the edges, and that drives me crazy. Right? So you look at how dysfunctional things are, but I think democracy is just a messy sport, and I don't think it's changing. But I definitely am wondering why the middle doesn't bond together to figure out how to not have, all the BS we have to go through in order to get basic things. Like you watch the drama of the debt ceiling, right? And you know how it's going to end, right? But you got to go through the drama, and markets go up and markets go down, and people scream and people yell, and it's like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So, to me, I think right now, obviously we're really focused on, whether it's going to be a $3.5 trillion bill, whether it's going to be a $1 trillion bill, and ultimately, what does that do to the dollar? And, I think that's something that we really have our eye on. Rates have started to move, and, we're curious where they end. So I think just generally the functioning. I also think that the reality is that we're dealing with a lot of equity issues that need to be addressed, and ultimately I think that if people don't feel like they're in the game, right, then you're going to have a problem. So I think those are things that I think and I love sports because they bring people together, and they make people cheer for things, and there's nothing like being at an event that matters because you see, how people can come together and be so excited about things. And so I think, that to me is hopeful. But yeah, I'm certainly, a believer that markets will continue to self-correct and democracy will continue to self-correct. And, but I think, we're people don't realize how fragile it all is and how quickly it can all change.
Well, coming out of COVID, sports is a great communal activity, and the other beauty of it, as I know you're seeing, is it's a great platform to get important messages out there like that.
Yeah. No, I think we used Dodger Stadium, so effectively, right? We were the largest COVID testing site. We were the largest COVID vaccination site. We were a voting site. So, I think we're super engaged on making sure that these assets can be used for multiple purposes. And ultimately, you're part of a community. And, our players do that great. You look at our players, they're very active in the community. They care a lot. They spend time. And, I think that's really what people get so excited about.
Thumbs up or thumbs down on private equity in sports, the liquidity being injected into sports leagues?
I mean, to me, I don't really think about it that black and white, right? I think about, it's not private equity itself that is the thing or not the thing. It's kind of all the incentive systems around that, right? So, if private capital wants to go into sports and it's got really long duration, then I think it's perfect, right? Because of course, these things are going to continue to go up in value. As more dollars come into the system, right, there's going to be, expansion of
What's
value.
the biggest threat? And we do valuations every year, and we've seen, the hockey stick. Is there a significant threat out there? And who saw a pandemic coming?
Yeah.
But is there a significant threat to that continuing?
I'm sure there is, and I'm not smart enough to see it.
Well, then I'm out.
Yeah.
I have to forget it. I'm not even going to try. Forget it.
But, I think, again, I come back down to what else do people get so passionate about, and what else do people care so much about, and what else has a finite amount, right? So when you kind of come back down to there's, not many of them, they're not manufacturing more of them, there might be a handful more, but they're not manufacturing a lot more. And, we're adding more and more liquidity into the system, and that's going to continue to expand values, and it won't be, all markets are like this.
Yeah.
But in the end, if the supply of money keeps growing and the asset itself is finite, it's hard to see it doing anything other than going up in value.
All right, because you said the word manufacturing, I'll just ask, any supply chain issues that hit baseball and the Dodgers? You get all your bats, your balls, everything you need?
I tried to get the Max Scherzer jersey with the.
I don't think that's stuck in the port of,
No, the postseason patch.
Oh, you can't get the patch?
I couldn't get the postseason patch.
Is it stuck in a boat somewhere?
There were
or is it-
apparently supply chain issues, was what they told me. So, we went to Dodger Stadium to get the Max Scherzer with the playoff patch, and, I couldn't get the patch, so I just went with the jersey.
Sports and business. There we go. Todd Boehly, thank you very much. Chuck Baker,
Thank
thanks
you
so
very
much. We
much.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Scott. Great
Yeah.
being with you.
Yeah, thank you guys.